Hi, welcome back. Today's notes are actually going to be probably one of the easiest note days I've given you guys in a really long time. So you'll notice after reading in your CJ, which I hope you've done first, that this video comes with full notes. You don't actually have to write anything down. If you have access to a printer, I want to strongly encourage you to print that off and then follow along as you're watching this video. If you don't, please don't stress. I would rather you just pay attention to the video, listen to the information being given, and maybe take like little side notes here and there as we go along. The Byzantine Empire is the eastern half of the Roman Empire. So when the west falls, the east continues. And this is a term that historians use to differentiate between the east and the west, so people don't get confused. The reason why I'm talking to you about the Byzantine Empire today is, although it is not a mandatory comp topic, it is still extremely important in understanding the full picture of our history class this year. There are events and significances of the Byzantine Empire that will help pave the way for future civilizations and future occurrences. So that's why I'm taking some time today, this week, and next week to go over it with you. So a little bit of a backstory before we just dive right in. The Roman Empire is going to be divided into two parts. Diocletian makes this decision, and basically he splits it between himself and the co-emperor Maximian. So Constantine will later become the emperor, moving the capital from Rome to Constantinople. And later on, he's going to adopt Christianity on his deathbed. After these events occur, the Germanic tribes of the Visigoths and the Vandals are going to sack Rome in 410 and then again in 455. This is going to put a significant strain on an already declining civilization in the West, and Rome will officially fall in 476. Now, while the West is falling, the East will continue to thrive and grow. And as you can see on this map here, we have Maximian's co-emperor territory and then Diocletian's territory. Now, the eastern part of the Roman Empire is going to continue to flourish for about 1,000 years after the fall of the western half. It's essentially seen as a continuation of the Roman Empire. The people that live here don't refer to themselves as Byzantines. They consider themselves Romans. And so historians are the ones to use this term Byzantine Empire to distinguish the difference between the East and the West. There's no specific start date to the empire, but we do know that Constantinople is made the capital in 330. So a couple of reasons for the survival of the East. They had a higher level of civilization. They had more access and territory in the region. I should say more access to technology, information, trade in general. There were fewer nomadic invasions. It was a much more geographically ideal place for people to live because it was naturally protected from invaders. They were very prosperous because they had access to all these different trade routes, and they had a stronger military. Remember, if I'm going too quickly, this is a video. Feel free to pause, write down what you want to write down, and then move forward. So Constantinople, it is now called Istanbul, located in modern-day Turkey. It was at the time the new Rome, quote unquote. It was the political, economic, and cultural heart of the empire. So sorry about the phone ringing in the background. I'm just going to wait a minute for it to stop. Sorry, guys. I'll just talk in between. So it's going to be the largest city in Europe, and it's very well protected. Old technology. All right. As you can see, Constantinople is protected by water on three sides, which makes it ideal, a very well-protected fortress. It's difficult to storm a fort, essentially from water, than it is from land. And so they had plenty of sight to see if anyone was coming from either direction. And then they also had, as you can see, this is not confetti, it's fire that they're blowing essentially on these would-be invaders. So the city walls were quite advanced. They had quite a bit of protection, moats, all sorts of traps. It really was a beautiful fortified fortress. So the empire will continue in the east, and they're going to continue to use late Roman ideas such as roads, taxation, their military structure, and court systems. They're going to attempt to preserve the Roman legacy. So people are referred to as Romans, and they are also going to forbid any kind of German customs. So they will not allow boots, pants, or animal skins, and people are not allowed to have long hair, meaning men mostly. Men are not allowed to have long hair. These are all traits of the Germanic tribes, which had destroyed the West, and so they're still pretty bitter, pretty salty about that. So the Romans living in the East do not want anything that reminds them of the Germanic customs, the people. Constantinople will be a trading hub. It's an agent of interregional trade, meaning it's at the focus, like the center of all these different trade routes. So they have great access to an abundance of luxury goods. They have some of the first, newest technology entering their city. So it was really an advanced civilization. Goods will be brought in from East, Central Europe, and Asia in exchange for Arab and Byzantine products. The economy will be based off of these standardized coins, which makes trading so much easier, as you can see over here on the right. And they're going to manufacture their own goods and services, like glassware, mosaics, and then silk garments. So you can see a depiction of the Blessed Mother down here with Jesus, and this is in the mosaic style. Justinian is going to be one of the emperors of the Eastern or the Byzantine Empire, and he will reign from 527 to 565 AD. He is born in northern Greece. He will learn Latin and then speak Latin, obviously, which later he'll influence the Roman Empire by making Latin the official language. He's going to marry a very famous actress by the name of Theodora. They'll be like the it couple. This is Justinian, by the way. Not Theodora, this is Justinian. Now, during his reign, he's faced with quite a few struggles. There's going to be a lot of riots as well as a plague. The plague is going to strike in 541, and it'll hit the towns along the coast first because the plague will be carried through trade, unfortunately. People will contract the disease and then get on ships and sail home or sail to the new port. Many will die on the journey, and then these ports will try their best to quarantine those that are sick. But it's honestly, they do too little too late. So at this point, when this plague hits in 541, a quarter of the empire's population will die. Constantinople alone will lose 230,000 people out of its 375,000 citizens. It's really devastating. So even though there's riots and there's a plague, Justinian is still able to achieve quite a bit during his reign. He is going to reach the greatest territorial size, meaning he expands the empire and maintains the empire boundaries. He's going to rebuild Constantinople, and also he's going to build the Hagia Sophia. At the time, it was one of the largest, most beautiful Christian Catholic churches, and then later, once the Ottoman Turks and the Muslims take over, they're going to convert it to a mosque. It is still in existence today. You can still go visit it. Obviously, it'll be a little difficult now with COVID and travel, but it is still a place that you're able to go and see. Lastly, one of his achievements are a law code known as Justinian's Code, and he's going to basically reform the Roman laws. These are pictures, modern day, and this looks like a picture, but I think it's a painting right here on the left of the Hagia Sophia. So you can see its intricate design, very elaborate, very beautiful. So Justinian's law code, or the corpus of civil law, he's going to commission legal scholars to basically sum up the 3 million Roman laws on the books. He's going to ask these scholars to go through, and what they realize is that there are quite a few laws that either no longer make sense, are repetitive, or basically serve no purpose. This reform will have a lasting effect even into our modern times. One of the most important legal works ever written, we still reference and use this as a model today in 2021. So we have some check for understanding. If you're at home and your parents heard or your siblings, they're probably like, why is your teacher singing? Have fun. Explain it to them. Okay, so our first check for understanding question. What did people of the Byzantine Empire call themselves? I wish I had Jeopardy music. The correct answer is Romans. They did not refer to themselves as Greeks, Germans, or Byzantines. They were Romans. Check for understanding number 2. Constantinople had great defenses that protected the city, including strong walls and the sea on 3 sides. Well done. You guys got this. The law code of Justinian was A, only used in the Byzantine Empire, B, became the foundation of law for most modern European nations, C, quickly became too large and was unusable, or D, was the first time laws had been written in Europe. The correct answer is B, as in Bob, banana, beluga whale, belugies, whatever you want to reference. Whoops. So the Byzantine government, it was basically all focused on Constantinople. That was the heart of their government, right? So they had a centralized government, meaning the government was in one place. The emperor claimed to be God's representative on earth. So now we see a blending of church and state. So this mosaic right here depicts that perfectly. You have Justinian here in the middle, and then you have him surrounded by priests to his right, priests and monks, and we can tell that way through the garments that they're wearing, the cross that they're holding. This is called the thurifer. It's used for holy days or high occasions in the Mass. They will incense the book of Scripture. They'll incense communion, all that stuff. And then on your left, you'll see him surrounded by advisors and the military, soldiers. So this is representative of his political and his religious authority. Another thing I want to point out really quickly is when you see this in artwork, this kind of halo around the person's head, it's meant to note that they have some sort of holiness, not necessarily divinity, but they are a holy figure. And so he is claiming to be a holy figure. This is known as Caesaropapism. And basically, he's going to borrow Persian and Greek court rituals. So the Byzantine culture, its foundations are in Christianity, Greek learning, and Roman engineering. They value education a lot. So there will be many state-organized schools and widespread literacy. They value the education of their citizens. They want people to think for themselves and to be knowledgeable. So the state provides all these opportunities for people to learn how to read and write and to be successful. For entertainment, just like in the western half, they really enjoyed chariot races. Now, normally if we were in person, I would show you this clip basically about the battle between the blues versus the greens, which leads to this riot in 532. So basically what happens is they had chariot races where your team was based off of a color. That was their banners. And so there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of political manipulation. And there was riots after one of the chariot races. And basically what happens is they condemn 4 men to die. 2, I think, from like the blue team, 2 from the green. And basically what happens is the rope snaps, saving the lives of 2 men from execution. 1 was a blue, 1 was a green, I believe. And so this whole massive riot comes out. The government comes after them because they're condemned to die. And the people are trying to protect them. And it's honestly like it's a smokescreen for this overthrowing of power that they're trying to create. Christianity in the East versus the West. So at this time, there's going to be 4 centers of Christendom, or 4 really important Christian cities: Rome, Constantinople, Antioch, and Alexandria. In the East, the church and the state are one. So the church will appoint the patriarch, who's kind of like the leader of the church and the government. In the West, the church is completely independent. So for the most case, rulers might be Christian, but they are not the leader of the church at the same time. This is a big difference between the East and the West, and this is going to lead to what's called the Great Schism. So you see over here, these are the patriarchs. These are the heads of the Eastern Orthodox Church, as they're referred to today. And then on the left, you have Pope Emeritus, now Benedict XVI. And what that means is emeritus means he's retired. So a Roman Catholic Pope has only retired I think 2 or 3 times in history of the church over 2,000 years. And why that's such a big deal and why that's so unique is normally a new pope isn't elected until the previous pope dies. And so Pope Benedict XVI, depicted here, he was pope, and then he, through prayer and discernment, he felt like God was calling him to step down due to health issues. He was no longer able to serve the flock. And so he felt like God was asking him to step down as pope and to allow a new servant to come forward. And so now the current pope is Pope Francis. So now we're getting into the Great Schism and this division between the Christian church. So up until this point, there's only one Christian church. They're known, they refer to themselves as Catholic, and that means universal. So no matter where you went in the world, the church was the same. Mass was the same. The scriptures were the same, all of that stuff. So basically, there's going to be an issue with icons. And so you have what's called iconoclasts, and they're the image breakers. The patriarchs in the East are going to order the smashing of all idols. So all artwork depicting the Blessed Mother, depicting any of the saints, depicting images of Jesus must all be removed and or destroyed. And basically the justification for this is the second commandment, where it forbids the worship of graven images. So the big difference here is that, before we go to the check for understanding, in the West, the Roman Catholic Church, they are going to say that these are not icons that are being worshipped. We don't put these icons in our homes because we worship them like false gods. It's more like having pictures of your loved ones in your home, right? So that is the justification. Whereas the East is going to say the second commandment is very clear. You cannot have any graven images, whether or not they are of Jesus or the Holy Mother or the Blessed Mother or any of the saints. And so by having these images, you are blasphemers and you are worshiping them. So that's going to create some tension. Check for understanding. The iconoclasts believed that people were doing what to icons? The correct answer is they believed people were worshiping them. Okay? That is the big division that is going to lead to the Great Schism. Well, one of them. So here's what happens. In 1054, the Roman Pope is going to excommunicate the Patriarch, saying, you cannot destroy all of these icons. You don't have the authority. We're not worshiping them. You're wrong. So in turn, the Patriarch, so the head of the Eastern Church and government, is going to then excommunicate all Roman Catholics. And so this is something that still is happening today, not necessarily the excommunication, but the consequences of it. So basically what happened is when the Roman Pope excommunicated the Patriarch, that meant the Patriarch was no longer in line with the church, which they believed God had established by telling Peter, you are this rock, and upon this rock I will build my church. That comes from Scripture. So when that happens, the Patriarch is no longer in communion with the church. He can no longer receive communion. He loses his faculties, all that stuff. The Patriarch, feeling that he himself is right, excommunicates all Roman Catholics, not just the Roman Pope. So that means Roman Catholics cannot go to any Byzantine churches and receive communion. They don't have, they are not seen as being in line with the church in the East, and therefore they don't have the same access to sacraments like they would normally. There are going to be a couple other disagreements besides the nature of icons. They are going to disagree on the nature of the Trinity, the relative importance of faith and reason, and this is basically going to lead to the Great Schism. So here are some differences now that come out of the Great Schism of 1054. The Eastern Orthodox Christian Church primarily was in Eastern Europe. Constantinople was their holy city, the head of their church. Their rites, their scriptures, all that stuff was written in Greek. They believe in iconoclasm, which means you cannot have any images of anything religious because it's considered blasphemy. They think that you are worshiping it. Priests are allowed to marry in the Orthodox Church. Easter is kind of seen as their high holy day, like it's more important than Christmas. And they believe in Caesaropapism, which is where the head of the church, the Patriarch, also selects the head of the government, and they're one and the same. They're combined. The Roman Catholic Church, on the other hand, was primarily in the West. Rome is that holy city. It's the capital. It still is today. Vatican City is located in Rome. All of their masses, their scriptures, and things like that were in Latin. They do support icons because they see it more as a tool to remember, to educate people about the past, about Jesus, about Mary, rather than worshiping those images. Priests are required to be celibate, which means they can never get married, they can never have children. They take vows of poverty, obedience, and celibacy. Most of them. Some of them don't take that vow of poverty. Christmas is a holy day, and the Pope is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. Really quick, I want to clarify something. I'm unable to change these slides. Christmas and Easter are both high holy days in both churches, in the Orthodox Church and the Roman Church. One does not outweigh the other. They both have significance. The difference is Easter is typically a week after the Roman Catholic Church. So the Roman Catholic Church will have Easter, and then about a week later, it will be the Orthodox Church. And I believe it's the same way with Christmas. I'd have to double check. So there are some similarities amongst the Orthodox and Catholic churches. The Bible, for example, their sacraments, the church hierarchy of bishops, priests, deacons, things like that. Their intolerance of other religions at the time, I'm not talking about right now. And it wasn't so much intolerance of other religions as it was they felt that their religion was the one true religion. And so if you really believe that what your faith is the truth and it's the only way to salvation, they were compelled to share that message with everyone else and to try to convert them so that they can also receive and enjoy eternal life when they die, right? So this prompts a lot of missionary activity. Check for understanding. What helped the Eastern Roman Empire survive? Was it being the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church, a loyal army, skilled bureaucracy, and wealth based on agriculture? Expansionists who conquered northern European lands held by their Germanic tribes? Its defensive alliance with the Persian Empire for protection against nomadic invaders? Or it wasn't an attractive target to attack? Let's see. Well, the Eastern Roman Empire was not the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church, so we know it's not that. We do know that they had a very strong, loyal army. They had a skilled government and wealth based on agriculture, so we're going to go with B. That's it. Pretty simple. So we're going to talk really quickly about Russia before I end this video. I'm sure I've lost your attention long ago. So we're briefly going to talk about Russia before the Mongols invaded. We'll talk about the Mongols in our next unit, post-classical China. So Russia, at this time, is going to start to develop and become its own territory in its own right. So it's inhabited by the Slavs, Slavic people, and their state was based off of trade. The state was founded by Rurik in 855, and legend says that he was a native of Denmark. He became the first prince of the Kievan Rus. So Scandinavians in Russia, after around 700, they're going to establish trade outposts. Trade outposts will turn into the first organized state. They're going to trade amber, swords, and wax. Their main goods, though, will be furs and the Slavs. So we're talking about the Slavic peoples. They're not slaves. We're literally talking about the Slavic people are hard workers. They're very intelligent, very good, skilled workers at what they do. The Rus, the people of Russia, will be a mix of Baltic, Finn, Slavic with the Scandinavians. So it's a melting pot of these northern territories, as you can see here in the map. Norway, Sweden, Denmark. They're all going to come together. The first organized state in Russia arose when, I forgot to sing the song, please forgive me, a nomadic pastoralist established a sedentary Jewish state. Byzantine missionaries converted Russian farmers. After Scandinavian traders set up a government along their trade routes, or Arabs who conquered the area established a province of the Abbasid Caliphate. The correct answer is after Scandinavian traders set up a government along their trade routes. Many Orthodox missionaries are going to go and travel to this place. Cyril and Methodius, they're going to be two very prominent Orthodox missionaries. They'll be the first into the Czech and Slavic republics, but they will fail because the Roman Catholics were already there and established. Then they'll continue further into the Balkans in southern Russia, and they're going to bring with them the Cyrillic alphabet, which is still used today. Prince Vladimir will convert in 989 because he wants to unify his realm And he also wants access to trade and commercial reasons. So basically what he does is he basically forces the princes and the elites to be baptized, which isn't the most efficient or effective way to invite people into a conversion of the heart, but this is what he does. The results will be the spread of Byzantine culture and a development separate to Europe. So very similar architecture styles and all things like that, but not quite the same. The spread of Christianity was accelerated in the Balkans and Russia through the missionary activities of Cyril and Methodius. The Kievan Rus will have a very decentralized government. There'll be principalities and boyars, which are essentially their aristocrats. Peasants will be fairly free farmers for the most part. There's going to be a threat of nomadic invasion, the Tartars, known as the Mongols, and then from this point on, Russia will be divided further from Europe. We don't talk too much about Russia, unfortunately. How did the Tatar-Mongol conquest of Russia shape Russian history? Basically what it did is it further separated Russia from the cultures of the Western world. So that concludes our notes for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys for Fun History Friday.